You've tuned in to Stock Car Facts, and we appreciate it. After a longtime car owner and crew chief, Charlie Newby, passed away, we felt we had to track down his former driver, Andy Farr, and we did it. So we'll talk about his ARCA days, his CASCAR championships, and, well, we won't talk about the 94 Daytona wreck first, but we'll get to that in part 2. Also coming along was Andy's lifelong friend, sponsor, car owner, crew chief, Tim Gietzen. Thanks for listening.
So I asked these guys if they're ready, and they said they are, so let's see.
I'm ready.
But
I'm always ready.
they're like always ready.
One way or the other.
Let's see how many people recognize these guys. You know what? I'm going to let you guys introduce yourselves.
That would be pretty interesting to see how many recognize.
Go ahead.
I'm Andy Farr.
I'm Tim Gietzen.
Now, how many of you fans out there know that? The mustache is gone and Tim's hair is gone.
That's right.
Well, when I said to these guys, we haven't seen each other in about 30 years. Well, I say at that CASCAR race a couple of years back in '99, we had the DeWalt sponsorship in Delaware, and I haven't seen you in forever.
Yeah.
I was saying these guys, I said, well, it's been about 30 years. I was half the man then I am today, but I wish I'd be their size. I think I was that size. I'm 10 years old, but anyway.
What happens is we have families, and that changed the
Is that
world.
it?
Well,
families?
yeah. I mean, Andy's son's a month or 2 months older than my daughter.
Oh, wow.
And so we had both the girls pregnant at the same time. And so that
wasn't coordinated.
But that keeps you busy from racing, right?
Yeah.
There you go.
Well, folks,
you go.
Appreciate you watching Stock Car Facts, and I am glad I found the guy on your left, my left too, but this guy is so hard to find. Tim's easy to find, but Andy, like he said himself, he's kind of, and I got to thank you, because when I talked to him on the phone, he said, well, I'm not really into that anymore, but that sounds fun. When he said, I'm not into that anymore, I'm like, oh, this is going south. And then he said, but that sounds fun. Oh, and I perked right up. So thank you guys for being on the show, and I figured, you know what? I'm going to have both these guys on because I think it's a good addition to not only have Andy on, but to have Timmy on, because they were so integral in well, I guess each other's career. I mean, Andy did the driving, and he's the one who advertised Tim's transmission parts, and Tim, helped Andy in his career, and you guys won championships and races, and I mean, you weren't household names until 1994. We'll get to that later. But I mean,
I don't know if that's household.
Well,
but in some homes, I'm sure it is.
YouTube infamy, but appreciate you guys being on the show, and
thank you for having us.
Let's start out by, again, Andy is famous on YouTube for what happened to Daytona in '94, but people don't realize that he's a champion. He was a champion in Canada. He's a champion of Mount Clemens. He's won a lot of races, and unfortunately, with that happening, you get infamous. Unfortunately,
Well, it becomes a focal point. Right?
Yeah, which is, I mean, good and bad. But
Sure.
But here's the thing. Why don't you guys talk a little bit about your start, and what led you to running the big time?
Well, we ran out at Mount Clemens like so many of our friends did, and started in the street stocks and did pretty good there. I remember winning a feature. My first feature race was in September of '79, 50-lap race, and man, that just hooked me. I mean, that was everything. It was really good. That's the way to win a race. It was the last race of the year.
Oh, wow. Momentum builder.
Yeah, I celebrated that win all winter long.
Your feet never touched the ground all winter.
That's right. It was cool. That was...
You were in it a year or two longer than I. When that happened, though, like when you won that race, I remember it actually, and I was already racing, but I was running with some other guys, and you were only 17 at that time, weren't you?
Yeah.
Oh,
That's
wow.
what I thought. Yeah, he was 17 when he won that.
That was the year I graduated high school.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so that's pretty cool, right?
Yeah.
Because nowadays you hear a lot of young kids running.
Now that's
they're
old
brought,
now.
They're brought,
Nowadays.
they're brought into at a different age. And
Yeah.
fortunately, Andy had the advantage of having his father in it as well, right? And his father did tons for my racing as well. So I think it was maybe a year. Was it the second year that you were racing that you and I?
Yeah, I think I'd been going 2 years,
Yeah.
and we got together and wound up running the Ragged Edge Racing Team.
That's right. Still got the jacket. So
Yeah.
it really
Wow.
happened.
Yeah,
it really
it was
happened.
fun.
We had it.
Try to find that on YouTube, folks.
But
Thanks for the pause, folks. Sometimes it does happen, but anyway. So go,
so yeah. I had just a thought that I was sharing at the moment with the fact that so Andy was running a couple of years before but we grew up in the same neighborhood, and we actually went to the same elementary schools for a time being. He's much younger than me, as you could tell. And he's
say so.
And he's better
Whatever.
looking, so he's got both those things on me. But no, we actually grew up in the same neighborhood, so we had a lot of the same background. And his father racing. I mean, I was a big Richard Petty fan since I was maybe 4. And then my next guy was Harry Farr. No, the truth of the matter, because he was a neighborhood guy, and that's who you watched when you went to the races, right?
Well, what determined who? I'm sorry, you threw the ball to him, but
No,
then I interrupted.
I just wanted to see, if Andy was going to go somewhere with that, talking about his dad and the start of racing. But either way, I was just kind of bringing it up there because I know that was like a huge part of both of our starts, right? Was your dad and
Yeah, I
the
think,
help.
he just wanted to be like Dad. He looked like he was having a good time, and he was.
So, you guys grew up in Detroit. So, how did Dad start racing in Detroit? Whenever goes from Detroit to racing, usually you're at the suburbs and have a lot of land you can put a shop on. And what happened there?
Dad owned a gas station, repair shop, so he ran his cars out of there primarily. Some of the stuff he did at home, but mostly out of the gas station.
He also started in his late teens, didn't he? Somewhere around there.
Yeah, he was pretty young. He was.
He was.
I know he was the track photographer at Mount Clemens
Really?
when he was a teenager.
Wow, that's quite a jump. I'll take pictures of him. Oh, now I'm driving. Wow, that doesn't happen a lot.
Yeah.
That's not one reason I didn't start racing is because, and what's the old saying? You want to make a small fortune racing, start with a big one, which I didn't have either. So it's an
Nor did we.
expensive sport.
Nor did
Well,
we, but we had the drive.
you had
right?
the drive.
Yeah.
And that was going to be my next question is, so who determined, speaking of driving, that, okay, Andy's going to drive and I'm going to do the other stuff?
Oh, no, we didn't really
Did you
decide
guys-
that.
Oh, okay.
I mean, Andy could probably speak to it, but we really didn't decide that. Again, we started racing together, and then I went on to Sportsman while Andy still ran one more year, I think, of Street Stock before you went to Sportsman, and I went to Super Late Model.
Okay.
So, and you never actually did Super Late Model. You went to CASCAR and to ARCA and such.
Really? So from Sportsman to CASCAR. Wow, that's kind of a jump and a different country.
But,
wow.
But when
wow.
But
That's a-
with the
that's
Sportsman car,
logistically, that's-
you ran some stuff that may as well have been late model, like Toledo, and
Yeah.
what were
that's
some of
true.
the other things that you did with that?
Yeah, well, we did all our real learning came in the Sportsman cars. Even in the street stocks, I look back at those years, and they were you had 100 cars to 100 teams to race against.
That's
and
true.
As you go along, it actually gets smaller and smaller.
That's true. That's
I
true.
don't think there's nearly enough attention paid to the very lowest classes. I mean,
No, you're
those are the
right.
guys that want to learn, they want to race. They just don't have these big budgets.
And the unpredictability of what you're watching. You can see probably anything, right? That's what I tell people about ARCA is
Yeah.
so unpredictable.
Probably-
But you
probably
never
true.
know what's going to happen. And that's where the entertainment comes in. Instead
Right.
of, you watch a cup race, it's almost formulaic. They take the same exact line, they do the same exact stuff. Okay, this kid's going to wreck that guy in the last lap. You know it's coming. It's almost like, oh, I've seen that before.
You can kind of liken it to college football. You've got absolute superstars out there, NFL quality guys, and then you got guys that are maybe not. And it
Scrapping and
makes
clawing.
That's a
it
true
really
street stock class.
exciting.
Yeah, right.
That's a true street
Exactly.
stock class, right?
And
You had a
that's
little bit
how
of
it
everything.
works.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Right,
So then what happened for me, and not to talk because we really want to talk about Andy, because he is the rock star
He's
here.
the rock star.
He's the
Everybody
rock
knows him
star
here,
here.
right.
But anyways, no. So my allergies and everything, bothered me in the long races, and I wanted
So you're
to
like
run
the
long
Gilly
races.
of this team, because
Pardon
Joy
me?
said the same thing about Gilly.
Oh yeah.
Gilly's
So-
health prevented him from running too.
So because of that, I just was having a hard time breathing in the long races and all that kind of thing, because at that time we were running open headers in the late models, and you're breathing mostly
yeah.
raw fuel, right?
Yeah.
And
Ooh.
it just was playing havoc on me, and it's something I battled all my life, so no big deal. So really, we never really decided. We just decided that when I climbed out of the chair, it's time to be hanging out.
Somebody's
with
got
me.
to fill it. You do it.
Well, it's not just that, but no, we he never stopped driving, and
Right.
and he needed the same thing. I think what you had, which is where we just really worked on trying to make it faster and better. We both had that same drive. It's just that it wasn't time for me to be in the chair any longer.
Just focus on different parts of it. Yeah.
Right. So it worked out, I think, rather well. We
It
had some
did.
successful days.
Yeah, we had some serious
But we had a
fun.
lot of great fun. Yeah.
Well,
yeah.
talking about success, I mean, maybe describe CASCAR a little bit for people without there don't. I mean, everybody knows, well, whatever it is, the Pinty Series, the Canadian Tire Series, whatever, the NASCAR Canada Series, but they don't know CASCAR. So maybe you can tell folks a little bit about that. And you guys started, from what I understood, the beginning of CASCAR was almost like street stocks, in a way, sportsman cars or whatever. In
Actually-
a way,
Actually,
what I've heard.
Just to jump in here a minute before, because Andy can speak better on CASCAR than I can, because that's what drew him there. But for me, when I had the late model, that was a CASCAR division. And so we used to run like Windsor, and I never ran London, but
Yeah.
there was a series that was Tony Novotny, who ran CASCAR, had a late model series before he ever put together more of a spec car.
Yeah.
And that, so I used to race CASCAR in the super late model.
I just can't imagine towing across the bridge, I mean, and then, what do you got to declare? It's like, well, where do I start,
At one point, we had to carry lists.
Yeah, you're right, which is what I've heard people had to do.
Yeah, sometimes it was actually kind of a pain, but mostly, they would open up the back of the truck and look in, and think, I'm not getting in there.
I'm not expecting that. Yeah, right. right.
We kept it just right.
And then it was, okay, yeah, you're good.
But what drew you to CASCAR?
You know what? When Mount Clemens closed, I had.
Because Larry LeMay was already running over there, but not CASCAR.
Right.
He ran the late model
probably
CASCAR
was,
with me.
yeah,
The
it
late
probably
model, right,
was.
the late
Yeah, several of them out.
but not the CASCAR that.
Right.
I
That division went through a lot of changes over the years, and what they ultimately worked on when we were there was trying to keep the costs down.
But you could tell he was building something.
It was growing. It was growing fast, and they got really good at marketing.
You're considered the first CASCAR champion, like in that type of format.
Sort of, yeah. In that version of it, when it really started to get big, they started bringing in some pretty good sponsors for the cars, for the races.
Were they televising?
They were
races?
televised
They
all
were
across Canada.
televising,
Really?
which
Wow.
and that's when it starts bringing in the sponsors. We got DeWalt for a sponsor for about 5 years there.
You were the Canadian DeWalt guy.
Yeah, Canadian DeWalt. That's
Yeah.
right. Yeah, our car had the little maple leaf above the DeWalt.
Well, right. most of them did. Wow, that's that. Because when I heard of CASCAR, I thought, oh, they're just mispronouncing it, and then you go, oh, CASCAR, right. And then Bob Logan drug ARCA over to Delaware, and then well, there is a CASCAR,
an actual CASCAR.
Yeah, and you ran an ARCA race at Delaware in '92, I believe, right? I think one of Charlie's cars,
I forget
wasn't
what
it?
year it was,
Yeah.
but I did drive one of Charlie's cars.
I think it was the last ARCA race at Delaware. That was '92. The only one I made 91, 92. I remember they were both hotter than blazes, but I think, like I said, I think it was Charlie's car, wasn't it?
It was
Charlie Newby. We just lost Charlie, unfortunately. Is that what kind of whet your appetite to say? Because CASCAR's they don't have super speedways over there, and I guess that's what every driver wants is to go the fastest I can. How can I go faster?
Yeah, the Sand Air Speedway.
But that's not banked. I mean, I'm not like Daytona or Talladega or Michigan or. I mean, you're not like flat footing it around there.
No.
Yeah, St. Air, but I mean, you're not
right
wide open. Is that what kind of said, well, wait a minute, this might be doable? I just drove Charlie's car. And, I mean, were they comparable type of cars?
They were pretty similar. The ARCA cars actually probably had more horsepower.
Yep.
They were heavier.
And heavier.
Heavier.
It was.
Well, how much did a CASCAR car weigh? Because ARCA
we
was
were
3,500.
I think we were only 2,800.
Oh, real? Oh, boy. Not less what lead to play with, I guess.
Right.
Yeah, 'cause
But
ARCA
you
was
think about it,
3,500 pounds.
in general, when you're talking about race cars, if you're going to try to keep the costs down, those lighter cars aren't as hard on parts or anything else.
Tires
and you
and all,
don't
yeah.
really have to worry about it because you're not on those super speedways, right?
True.
So
true.
when you build a division, whether it be ARCA or CASCAR or something else, you have to look at those things when you put the division together.
And I could tell where Bill France is coming from. You know, he saw it race in Indy, and then he grew up with those board tracks, which were what 50-degree banking or what. I mean, you literally like looking at the top of the guy's head. You know, those old
Right.
videos of those board tracks, and he put it together, and you know, people love speed. I mean,
Right.
you know. What did Ricky Bobby say? You know, fast, greasy speed or whatever. You know, so you're running CASCAR. I think you got 5 or 6 wins over there, 10 wins or whatever.
Oh my gosh, more
What
than
is
that,
it?
I think.
I never
Officially-
Never counted them, but
never-
there was more
officially,
than
yeah,
that.
yeah.
No, I think there was more than that.
Is there?
Championships,
There
there was
probably was.
Couple national champion
Yeah.
and also Delaware champion.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we did really good over there.
But what
And
made
it
you
was
decide
fun.
to? Is it just like, well, we've done it, let's go do something else, see if we can conquer that?
Yeah, you know, sort of. I mean, you're always kind of looking ahead, and we had done quite well in CASCAR, and thought maybe we could do well in ARCA, and we had an opportunity to try it. So
Yeah, I think it was really more the opportunity from Charlie, wasn't it?
Yeah.
I mean, we really.
So who
would
came to
have
who?
It was.
I thought I read somewhere he came to you,
think-
but I mean, is that
Well-
accurate?
I think Charlie was talking.
I can't even remember how that came about. But
'Cause you guys already had
we
a
got
history.
together, and
Yeah.
Right.
you know, I think it kind of started by driving his car at Delaware that one race.
Never burn your bridges. Keep them contacts. Right.
Yeah.
I mean, it's sometimes that's what has to happen.
Yeah.
I remember Speedy Jack Monahan,
Yeah.
and most people would remember him on the local
Oh,
short tracks. I mean,
yeah.
and just a heck of a good guy, like just the best. And we had
Great
to screw him into your chair before when Andy had the flu or something, and
that's
he
right.
ran like 100 laps or something. We put
Put Jack in the car.
Jack in the car for another 150, and then you finished the last 100 or something like that.
Wow.
But because Jack had problems that day or wrecked out, I don't recall what, which is rare for Jack. But you know, great
Yeah,
guy,
yeah.
great people, great guy. But there's
Legend
another,
in Canada.
There's legend in Canada. But there's a perfect example of why Charlie even would look to Andy is that we had Jack in the car, and we'd have put him back in any other time too, right?
Sure.
Absolutely.
So, 94 rolls around, and you guys said, well, we're going to go ARCA racing. I know this is going to sound like a funny question. Looking back now, do you think it was maybe you bit off more than you could chew? It's like, oh my God, I did not expect it to be like this. You know, my God, the money we're spending. Oh my God, the travel, the this, the that, the other. The cars
Well,
feel, like you say, heavier. So now you guys are looking at to continue on about the question about is it bit off more than you can chew. First, I guess I could rephrase it to say, I'm sure it wasn't what you expected, but I mean, was it like this is where I want to be, or is it like, why did I do this? You know.
I think we talked about it more than once that we wanted to do it all along.
But once you got there, it's like,
oh no,
why
I
are we
think
here?
I think it was even more
spent a lot
gratifying.
of
I don't know
money.
about
We spent a lot
Andy,
of
but
money.
it was more gratifying to me that we finally got to step it up.
We
a
spent
notch.
how much? Tires are how much?
You know what though?
What?
Andy can tell you the CASCAR deal was such a good deal, and we ran the streets several times up there in Toronto, and some of the racetracks that we raced, and the Canadian people were so good to us. So you actually end up missing that a little bit because now you're stepping into
Yeah.
a new pool. But really,
Gotta rebuild
it's
the
something-
fan base,
I think
yeah.
I think the real deal is I know for me, I was really looking forward to going into ARCA at some point.
And not crossing the border.
Because I even looked at I even looked at buying an ARCA car myself to drive
okay.
before when I still had the super late model. So
Yeah,
ARCA was always interesting.
I think the fact that they were running tracks that I had gone to as a kid just to watch, and I mean, there were places that I really dreamed of racing. So, I mean, just on that account alone, it was something that I had to do when we had the opportunity.
So when you look back, what was your favorite track that you ran? You said, "Oh, I always wanted to run here." What were you really looking forward to? And once you did it, yeah. I mean, CASCAR, ARCA, whatever, you know.
Well, honestly, we probably didn't run as well as we wanted anywhere.
Well, does a race car driver ever, you know? You don't win it.
Well, I did
It
a few
always stuck.
times.
Yeah, a few times.
But probably, like, I wanted to race Winchester more than any track I've ever
My
run.
favorite tracks. I love that
So,
place.
but,
Great
you know,
place.
we went to Winchester, and the first thing we did, going out for practice, one of my guys reached in the car to help me with the belts and swung the buckle up and knocked out my front teeth.
Oh,
So that was
Bad
my
start.
first experience at Winchester.
I get that out. But this is the worst thing that happens all weekend, you know. Knock a few more out as long as we finish top 5. I don't care. Yeah, I know, easy for me to say. But wow, well. You had a fifth at Flat Rock, which is, you know, we call it Crash Rock. You had, I think, a seventh at or Kilcare. I'm sorry.
Kilcare, we ran
You had a
pretty good
seventh
at
somewhere.
Kilcare.
Yeah, that's a weird. My gosh, that's
Yeah.
weird.
Yeah, that was a hard track to learn.
No, I don't think anybody ever actually learns it.
Yeah, right.
You just
I
survive it.
didn't really learn it. We didn't do bad there though, and it was fun.
If you look at a satellite picture where the the crisscross roads go through it, you go, my God, that's a jack-o'-lantern, you know. I mean, there's no. I mean, Joy Fair couldn't even drive it. His eyesight. That's why he turned the car over the year before to Harold Fair Jr. in Rick Hahn's car. He just said, I can't see, and these turns are so weird. I don't want to hurt
I
anybody.
recall the lighting there was
Horrible.
not very good.
No. And they must have done something because Hooters Cup ran there, a couple times. So
Yep.
they must have improved something. But I probably ran there because it's Ohio and close to home, and you're home that night. But and your seventh, I'm trying to think where you had a seventh. I'm trying to remember what that was. You had some top 10s and a top 5, and you didn't run the whole schedule, but you ran what, 15 races, I think, 14, 15? I think you missed Atlanta.
Must have
sounds
been
right.
about right. Yeah.
I think you guys missed Atlanta.
Yeah,
I think.
we had a lot of.
But there was like 90
mechanical-
cars showed up for that one. Or whatever.
Right.
God, that was
that was actually a really tough season. A lot of the Cup teams had cars that they were putting in the series. And
Daytona was what, 75 cars, I think.
Yeah, well,
That's
that's
like crazy.
And again, that's when you're being supported by a NASCAR team. It makes it tough on the guy that's a weekend racer.
Yeah. Well, and I understand where ARCA's come from. You got to have a training ground. I get it.
No question. No, they did a great job.
But, it's like you guys say, it's like, what we got? Look where we're running. Look to spend. I mean, we got a fraction. I mean, we'll spend all year with these guys doing one race, I mean, and,
it is true.
I think it was worth every penny, though, that we spent. At least to me it was. Wasn't it to you, too?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. And we didn't have a lot of pennies to put together. The pennies that we did spend, we really enjoyed what we got out of it.
searching the couch cushions. And
Yeah. Well, we had to. We did that even in the taxi cab.
And even here in Michigan, we had bottle returns. So
Yeah.
as we're going on in the trash cans and looking for your bottles, huh? I can't turn it for your deposits. So 95 rolls around. Did you guys just say, you know what, it's time to go do something else, or did Charlie say, Mark Gibson's coming back? What happened there?
Well, I think we had such a tough season that it was probably really best for both of us to go different directions, see what we could salvage, and I think it probably worked out better.
Mutual thing?
Yeah. It
Not like,
really was.
oh,
No. There was no problems. No. Charlie was a good guy.
Because I mean, when I saw Mark return, I'm like, this makes sense. He's got a shop down there. He can maintain the stuff. He can rebuild it. Charlie's got a full-time job. I mean, not much he can do. He's doing the best he can, but it's changing. Mark's got all that cup technology from his brother.
He also had some backing, right? And that makes a difference. And so if we could have come up with a sponsor at that time that would have helped Charlie out, I'm sure that Andy would have been back in the chair for 75 or 95 as well.
Do you look back and go, man, I wish I'd have run another year of ARCA. I wish we could have found another car owner. That would have been great if we could have found another guy. Or did you kind of actively look? Or
I don't spend much time looking back, ever.
So what led you back to CASCAR?
Looking forward.
They know me there.
Yeah.
Enough of this American stuff. We're going to go to the other North America.
One thing, we had met a lot of people, all the networking through ARCA. I went back to CASCAR. I took 95 off.
Oh, okay.
And,
kind of heal up maybe too, and
well,
save a little money.
We tried to regroup, and
Right.
both of us had babies at that time. So when you've talked about 94 in Daytona, both of our wives were out to here.
Oh boy!
Right.
Wow.
So things changed after that. In fact, I didn't even race much with you in that last bunch of the CASCAR stuff. Maybe to a few, but I wasn't there all the time right by your side.
That must have seemed odd.
Not because I didn't want to. Yeah, no. I just had my business, and I had a daughter, and she was a full-time deal, and that's the way it is. You take care of family.
Yeah. Oh yeah. These people that had kids in race, it's like, how'd that happen? Yeah. Jeez.
Yeah.
How did you have kids and dragging them up and down the road, and oh my God, the intensity that takes.
tough.
Yeah. Well, I heard Kenny Wallace on a podcast say that people thought Rusty was a a-hole, but he said he wasn't necessarily an a-hole. He was just so focused, he wasn't aware of anything around him. I mean, and I guess people can. I guess that's the real successful ones that are like hyper focused. I guess.
Yeah, I don't think you could do it if you're not.
If you're not, and that's what some of those pictures show, is the intensity on Andy's face. And that's the way it has to be.
Yeah, I'm going to show you a picture here, and these two pictures from Daytona, and it's so. Reading back to some of the old articles, I know you said that was your dream come true, is to run Daytona. Was that, like you said, Winchester? But you're at the fastest track on the circuit. Well, Talladega too. You didn't get to run Talladega, but
Right.
you show up here and it's like, what are you thinking when you're strapped in, ready to head out there? And I got to hold my foot down on the floor.
That's the only place I've ever been where you did just hold your foot down to the floor, and
That had to be a different experience, huh?
it was, and it took probably 2 laps before I could actually.
Had to get it from here to here.
Yep, hold it
Top of your
down.
head to.
It was cool. The one thing I remember after the first time out, when I came in, I don't remember if it was Charlie or one of the guys said, "Man, we got a driver that can talk on the radio going through the corners." And I thought, holy crap! You mean I didn't have to?
That's perfect.
That is so funny. I spot for Brad Smith now doing his PR. He says he likes a lot of talking. I'm like, I'm a perfect spotter for that. You want talking? I'll give it there.
Yeah.
But
that's cool.
so yeah, I talked to one of the crewmen from the next year, and they went to number 7. They said, well, we thought maybe we were canceling out our luck. Because you got 77, maybe one's canceling out the other, so we'll go with 7. But yeah, Mark took over that deal for Charlie, and then ran 95. Had that pretty Avenger, and then 96 rolls around, and he's just does a couple races with Doug Coletta, and that was about it. 96, 97 in Michigan, and that was it. It's like.
It was getting more and more financially difficult to run the big series, and that's all there's to it. And that's why I say, had Andy and I been able to put together, and I say I because I helped out on the first go around to get us up and running with Charlie.
Tim's transmission parts for those folks wonder what he's talking about.
Yep. Though it's gone, it's
gone,
great
but
memories. Great
some
memories.
people remember.
and a lot of folks had it on their cars as well.
Yes.
But in any case, if we'd have been able to put together a sponsorship, I think Andy would have been in the chair another year or longer. But that's just it. You have to come with money, and just like that, Charlie was able to do what he could for a couple more years, but it just kept getting, every year it was more of a financial burden.
Plus, I think Pat was dealing with I thought she was dealing with some pretty serious health issues.
I think it was,
at that time, or a little after that?
It was.
It was at that time.
Yeah.
Because I remember asking him quite a bit
Yeah.
how she's doing, because like you said, what a terrific lady.
Wonderful lady.
You know,
Wonderful
and
lady.
and so it's kind of odd to see Charlie go, and she's still here because we really thought at that time she's gonna go, but funny how life works out. So you returned to CASCAR. I think you said you weren't too much involved when you went back.
Yeah, at the time, for me, it was just that, my daughter was there and business was there, and it just was a tough time. And plus, like Andy had said, he took a year off, and so you can kind of get a little rusty in a year, like you start moving in another direction, basically, what I guess I'm getting at. And it didn't stop our friendship, and I made it out to a few races, but I couldn't commit to it like I did in the past before that, and it's just part of life,
But you had enough clout that you grabbed a major company like DeWalt. I mean, we're not talking small potatoes there.
No, that was a good deal, and that came from our previous record and doing a lot of networking. It wasn't easy to get back in, but we really wanted to, and we got in there, and it was pretty tough. Things were different. The one thing that I did that was probably too big a change was I'd always run the Chevys right from day one until we had Charlie's car. Well, that got us hooked up with a lot of people from Chrysler. So when I took that year off, I talked to all three manufacturers quite a bit, and the Chrysler guys were the ones that were willing to help us out.
But you weren't as familiar.
Right. Turns out I wasn't really a Chrysler driver.
Could have that Hemi under the hood. Yeah, right, sure.
Yeah, no, I think we always had good horsepower. Maybe I was a little too cocky, figuring, wow, I can definitely make this work.
That's one thing I've never heard about Andy Farr. Cocky? What?
I keep it in my head.
Well,
kind of.
You got to be cocky to be a race car driver, sure.
Well, yeah, you do. I mean, have you ever heard one say that he wasn't the best guy out there?
Right.
I might not have said it, but believe me.
You thought it. Well, you had to. Yeah. Had to, right.
We all believe it.
So you go back to CASCAR. And obviously it ended. So what was the beginning of the end?
Honestly, we had put so much work into it. Our travel schedule was crazy.
Oh, yeah, you're going out to British Columbia. It's like,
out west as well.
Out west.
Yeah, out to
all the way out west.
You can't get much further than British Columbia.
We're driving
Saskatoon.
I mean, out east as well, too.
Oh, yeah, Nova Scotia. Yeah, no, you're right.
There was, I recall one trip we drove 40 hours straight. Well, we stopped every 4 hours and filled up the truck. But the thing was, after doing that, honestly, I know I was just exhausted. And we lost DeWalt. The economy had taken a turn. And I knew what it took to get DeWalt. And you put that on top of being exhausted. You know what, man?
Risk versus reward. Let's add it up.
It's time to work on raising a family, which I had going.
Did you have a little bit of that from home, too, going, be nice to see you a little more. No, okay.
You know, he always that's one thing. Lori always gave him great support. And
Absolutely.
The boys still go to the races with Andy and all those kind of things. So the support wasn't the problem. Like you said, and again, if we did it like we did, both of us, with the ARCA deal, Charlie and the crew had all that grunt work. They were the ones getting burned out by towing the car. And Andy and I would fly in carrying his helmet bag, one or the other of us. I know. Normally I couldn't carry his helmet bag. He was much better. But no, the truth of the matter is that's how we did it, and you didn't really get burned out then, right? I mean, that was a lot easier than trying to...
Still gung-ho.
If you had a crew towing your car out west and you show up, like NASCAR, like ARCA, it's a big difference. It's a big
And then
difference.
getting older, it's...
Sure.
We were still pretty young at that time, but
Yeah.
Well, I remember
think we were.
I remember Bob Keselowski saying, like when he was young, you
Sure.
drive all night, you get to the racetrack, you're up all day, drive back home, you have work the next day.
That's
He
how
said,
it was.
I think it was like 10 years ago, he and I were talking about this. He said, man, now, he said, the hauler's pulling out of our parking lot. I'm already asleep,
There's
And
a
I
lot
hear
of
what
truth
he's
to
like.
that.
I hear
There's a
what
lot
he's
of truth to that.
I hear you.
And again, that's part of what Andy's talking about.
Yeah.
How do you do it?
You do look back on that and kind of think, I don't know how we did it. It's crazy.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I didn't miss, when I started my magazine in summer of 91, I didn't miss one race until the end of 96 when I ended it. And I drove to every single one. Not because, I didn't have the money to fly, but, I wanted to leave when I wanted to leave, sometimes in the middle of the night or, whatever. 2 hours toward a race is better than nothing. Oh, wait till the morning, well, no. I can at least get halfway into Ohio or whatever, and you're not much closer.
And the other thing was, even like for us, we had 9 to 5s going, and you get out to a race, it rains out, and they run the following day.
No.
That really kinks your whole week, right? Now you got to drive home, only to go back to work instantly, like literally out of the truck and into work. It's rigorous, especially running Canada. A lot of people don't realize. Even in the States, it's bad enough when you're on a traveling series, but when you're traveling in another country, it's just another whole complexion.
Yeah, I can just. That's why I say it's like, and instead of being like other interviews and answering the question for you, I figured that's what it was. The travel time, you got to drive around the Great Lakes, unless you went through the States and back into Canada again. I don't know how you did it,
I don't know how we did it.
was I right in thinking that team was based in Canada, or was it based here?
Our team?
The second time in CASCAR.
We were here.
Okay, I don't know why I thought we were driving for somebody,
That would have probably kept you in it longer, had that been the case.
But who do you find that you can trust, right? Not that racers are distrustful, but we've heard some stories, But and I know you wanted your finger on the, okay, what's going on in the car, and I don't know these guys too well or whatever. Not like it's a Charlie deal,
Did you ever drive for many people? I know you've jumped in the saddle before, but actually drove for an owner? I don't remember
No,
that.
not really.
Yeah, I was going to say, I didn't think so.
Just single, one-offs. Quite a few of those, but
Because like I drove that year or 2 years for Vinny, and
Yo, Vinny.
and that was one of those things that it made it a lot easier, and you just had to trust what they had, and you had to run what they brought, right? That was just part of the deal.
Yeah.
So it would have worked out fine to have somebody in Canada owning the team and letting you drive their rig. And most of those guys got pretty serious. So the guys that did hire drivers, they had good equipment and they maintained it well. So they were hard competitors.
Obviously, Mount Clemens is a big part of you guys' existence. So you brought a photo of that black 04. Talk about that a little bit.
Well, I grabbed that picture. I just always liked that car. It was pretty cool. We were really successful with that one. We'd won a lot of races. That's the car that we actually finished up with at Mount Clemens when it closed. And that last race.
Yeah. Spectacular.
Yeah. Yeah, I think
You were forced. That's the end.
well, I remember we had to finish. All we had to do was finish 14th, and we had the championship no matter what. And probably halfway through the race, I was running ahead of the guy that was in second in the points, and I just passed him. I looked in the mirror, admiring my work, and it sounded like a bomb went off. I ran over a chunk of lead that was about the size of a car battery.
Oh.
And it ripped through the front cross member, through the oil pan. It cracked the rear end housing, and it put us out of the race instantly.
Yeah.
And ultimately wound up losing the championship by 1 point to a good friend of mine,
Yeah.
George Deacock.
Okay.
Wound up winning it.
At least it was to a friend.
Yeah, it is good that it was to a friend.
Yeah.
Still stung, but by 1 point. Oh my God.
But that was just,
Don't look in the mirror. That's what I always teach, right? Don't look in the mirror.
yeah.
Oh my
Yeah,
goodness.
exactly.
It's horrible.
That was that Monte Carlo body, and then
Yep.
the following year, when you went in the CASCAR, that was the first body that was on the CASCAR.
Right.
Okay.
And it was the Monte Carlo body.
Wow. So there was that. You brought up a picture of you and Bobby Allison and Victor Lane at a CASCAR race at Cayuga. Is it even opening? I know it's Yakuza and back to Cayuga, and
It's closed.
it's closed again.
Yeah, unfortunately it's closed.
Boy, never been
It
there.
sounds like it's gone for good. And at the time, and for most of the years, I think that we were going up there, and for sure during CASCAR, the Slacks owned it.
Yeah.
So Randy Slack that drove, and he was a heck of a driver. Like I think, he was a kind of a quiet guy, but he was a good friend of ours, and he was real good with us. And Randy was just a sweetheart, and as was the whole family, the Slack family. So it was a place that we always looked forward to go to race, always. That day there, though, was special.
Well, it looks like they knew how to bring people in because, Bobby Allison's in Victory Lane there with you, and we'll put a. Sorry, Timmy. When I put these pictures up, it's covering your face, but
That's great.
It's on the
I'm
right.
Good with that. I'm perfectly good with that. In fact, there's not much to see there.
Not much to say, right. But yeah, Bobby showed up, but he didn't race, right? He was just there,
No,
the
he was-
appearance thing.
Yeah.
Because he wasn't racing anymore by then because he'd been hurt at
That was
Pocono.
after
Yeah.
his accident.
Yeah.
What does that do for a guy? Like they'll have, hey, so and so's going to be here, and then they show up in Victory Lane. I mean, no offense, this is Bobby Allison, this is Andy Farr, but what does that do for a guy like you to say, oh my God, Bobby Allison is here to hand me my trophy and congratulate me? It's like cool.
It was really cool. Bobby Allison was, definitely a hero. I think the first model car I ever built was number 12, Coca-Cola, Bobby Allison, and that was just awesome.
And now NASCAR thankfully gave him that win from Bowman Gray. Talk about timing is everything. But right. I mean, we were talking about that earlier. It's like, did you guys, have a, they always used to say, Bill France said, him and the higher powers had something to do with the weather. It's like, well, maybe racing too, because this should have happened a long time ago, but at least better than nothing.
Right.
Because you don't want to do this after the guy passes away.
Right.
That would have been horrible. Again, better than nothing, but he wasn't. I saw him this time last year at the NASCAR Hall of Fame induction, and when Donnie went in, and he didn't. He smiled and and waved to people. Bobby didn't say a word. He was in the wheelchair the whole time, and didn't say a word. So we kind of figured, not going to be long now.
After his wreck, though, when he was there that day, he was great and talked with everybody and spent time with everybody there before the race, there after the race. He was just a big part of that whole day, and what a day to win.
I remember when I did.
Day to win.
I remember I did my Joy Fair book. I'm sorry. Were you going to say something? I interrupted you. Sorry. I don't want to get yelled at later in the comments. You talk too much. Whatever. I was doing my Joy Fair book, and I talked to Bobby, and he said he didn't remember much about Joy. And then I was working on another book about the '74 Michigan race. It was going to be, the premise of the book was going to be my first ever race, '74 Yankee 400. Can't say that nowadays. But anyway, 6.5 years old, and I wanted to go back through and talk to all the people since. 50 years, I wanted 2024, 50 years later. Hey, where is everybody? Well, I talked to Bobby, and he said, well, we just started running the Matador. We're running really well. And every time I run the Matador, we led. And I went back and looked, and he didn't lead that race. And I knew that at the time we were talking to him, and I just did not have the heart to tell him, no, you didn't lead the race. Matter of fact, he spun during the race. He had a brake problem or something, and it was like 40, 50 laps in, and it caused him to spin off the track. He spent the rest of the day getting the lap back, and I think he did finish top 5, but he did not lead. But I just couldn't.
That whole Allison family, they could say they led every race they ever drove, and I'm perfectly good with that, because those guys really are a huge part of racing, not only for all of us that race short track and such, but they literally drove everything. And as we were talking Michigan, my first race in Michigan, they opened in the fall of '68. I was there in the spring of '69.
The IndyCar race.
Or the stock car race in '69, the very first.
Oh, yeah.
The IndyCar race was 68 in the fall when the racetrack opened. But I remember that was typical of the Allisons, and not everybody, but the Allisons, AJ, people like that, would run the IndyCar, in the stock car in the same day.
Yeah, USAC,
Man, that was so great.
Yeah.
But those guys, like I say, they could say they led every race, and I'd be, okay, that's good. Any one of them. That's
Who
good.
might argue?
No. They're definitely part of the racing royalty.
I forget where they did a double bill somewhere. And everybody said, "Oh, what a great idea! We're on the Indy cars with the car." Whatever. And I'm thinking, where you been? Michigan used to do it every
year.
single year.
It was so awesome.
And you look back at the picture of the stands. There's not an empty seat in the house. Right. The main grandstands, the ones in turn 1, the ones in turn 4. I mean, the place is packed.
Great.
And then
great times.
and then of course when USAC, kind of, that plane crash didn't help. And most of the key people were on it. '79, then it was not USAC anymore, kinda, and that was the end of basically of that. And what a great. Well, they tried it again in '80 when ARCA ran there. Joe Ruttman ran that race.
Right.
And then I guess that was it. And they tried ASA and took until 1990 again to get back out there with the ARCA car. They've been there since, but it was just. And I think they had a double bill in '96. I think. Indy cars, but not the same day.
Yeah, I was going to say, I don't remember that.
I think it was the same day.
I just remember in the early days that was an awesome thing. And to me, real race car drivers like the Allisons, those
Race
guys
anything.
would drive anything. And I've always said, that literally A.J. Foyt could win in a wheelbarrow.
Yeah.
He'd win a wheelbarrow race. I mean, that man can... but he's always been that way, and it's funny too because I was never like a huge AJ fan.
Yeah.
But I've got so much respect for that man. It's just insane.
And he just turned 90.
He's awesome. He's the best.
God, my mind goes, what?
He's the best.
90 years old.
Yeah. No, he's the best.
Super Tex. He keeps proving it.
So when the Allisons were there, that was quite a race for Andy. We always were working in the background, you might say, and it wasn't cheating. Don't get me wrong, but we were working.
Innovation.
We were always working the background as well as the foreground. I just like the story. That's why I have to kind of interrupt and jump in there, and Andy can add to it because he's the guy that won the race. But we went out there, and I remember it was only Scott and myself and Andy. We took the car up to go racing. The rest of the crew couldn't make it till race day. Wow. So we were up there, just the three of us, and everybody had full teams. So we would have to team up with another team even to pull a pit stop off, right? Like, there was no way we could do it. And so here we are in Canada, and fortunately we made a lot of great friends up there. So about every team wanted to pit your car. What's that all about? Were you paying them in the background? What was going on there? But anyways,
Somebody's got to do it, right?
that particular
He wanted
weekend,
to win as bad as I did.
yeah. Often Scott would be the one on the horn, but I was on the horn that day. And Andy goes out on the track, and man, the car in front of him just had oil dry go down. I'm like, what's that noise? Pull in. We got to look underneath the hood. So we pull into the pits and flip the hood open. So now other cars go out there and clean the track up. And it was late in the qualifying. We pulled something pretty late in the qualifying, and one guy sat on the pole all day long, and Andy came by and just blistered the track record. He just took it, cleaned them up, and then what does he do the next day? Goes and win with the Allisons there. How wonderful! It was
And
just
Cayuga's
it was just one of those special
famous
places, and
track.
special times.
It's
Right?
one of the more famous Canadian tracks.
Yeah, that track reminded me so much of the Mount Clemens half mile. I felt right at home. First lap I took. Man, this is it. This is a nice racetrack.
And nice feather in your cap, you know.
Yeah.
Win a Cayuga, you
Yeah,
know.
that was cool.
Yeah, I mean, like I say, when I think of Canadian racetracks, what do you think of? One
Right.
of them was Canadian,
Right.
was Cayuga.
100%.
You know, Cayuga, St. Air. I mean, I kind of think of Toronto Road Course. You know, I mean, now it's all different ones. You know, they run dirt here and they run this one here, and a lot of Quebec tracks. But back then it was Cayuga, Cayuga,
In
Cayuga.
those early days, a couple of years, ran Mosport. And
And Mosport,
when I was a
sorry. I
kid,
knew I was
that
getting
was
one.
like that was like a legendary track when I
Yeah,
was a kid.
yeah.
You know,
Oh yeah, they were.
that
USAC
place
stock
was
cars were there too.
something else.
Indy cars, stock cars. Yeah,
at
that's-
Mosport.
Yeah.
Yeah, we
And then
ran both.
CASCAR.
They've also put up a
Formula
short
One
track.
back
We
in the day.
ran both the short track.
Oh, yeah, you're right.
And the road course.
I forgot they had a short track there too.
But
right?
that road course, Andy could tell you stories about that. It's quite a racetrack. I mean, you can see why it's a legend up there.
up and uphill, downhill. And
I don't think there was a corner in that track that wasn't blind. And it was hard. And the amazing thing is, every time you crest the hill, you're on the wrong side of the track.
oh, there goes my apex.
Yeah, it wasn't the easiest thing. But man, what a place to drive.
So that's pretty fortunate, right?
Yeah,
so that's
definitely.
another one of those legendary tracks.
I remember going in the first time we went there, Tim and I had to push the car up to the garage for tech. And it's dark out, it's raining, and this thing is a beast to push. And finally we get it in the garage, they tech it, we're good. And I got in the car in the garage and fired it up. And Tim leaned on the quarter panel and we spun it around inside the garage and drove it back.
In the world?
That's it, man.
Oh, man.
Yeah, if you'd have pushed that up there, you'd have definitely been.
Finding an easy way out of it.
Oh my goodness.
That was a fun place. That was one of the many fun places.
Thanks for tuning in. Next week, we'll discuss Andy's ride into the Turn 4 wall at Daytona in 1994, the first person ever to cease operations at the track for breaking the concrete. We'll see you then.